Kenny Carpenter live from Rome. How does it all begin? The finding of music for you. Where does this start for you?
Well, it all started when I was about 8 years old, right? I liked this song, right, that my mother used to play all the time. It was called Raindrops by D. Clark.
Oh, really?
And I remember that my mother had a record player. You know, at the time, there were only record players. There weren't like stereo systems. And it was just, you know, a box with a record player inside. Mm-hmm. Put the record on and play it. You know, two little speakers in the front. You know? So when my mother would go out, she didn't want us to. I had 7 brothers, and my mother didn't want us to touch that record player. You know, so she put it on a high shelf. And every time when my mother would go out, I wanted to hear that song over and over and over again. I just loved that song. So I had to climb up on a ladder, right, to get up to the shelf that she put it on, you know, to play that song. And that was the beginning of my obsession with music, buying music and playing music in the house.
Well, guess what? We got that song, so we're gonna play it. So, Richie, bring up the volume.
Are you serious?
You know, my mother was a big Tom Jones fan.
Oh, really?
She was in love with him.
Wow. So going from now, this is Brooklyn now. What years would you say these are?
Oh my God, that was in.
And where were you at that period of your life?
That was in 1966, something like that.
Okay.
It was a long time ago, brother. Mm-hmm.
I know, but where was that now? Now you were living in New York. Were you in Brooklyn?
I was living in Brooklyn.
Okay.
I was living in Brooklyn, and my family, we grew up in a housing project called Farragut Houses. Farragut.
I know
we called projects at that time. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, now they call it the Farragut condos or whatever you want to, because it's been gentrified,
yeah.
Right? Amazing.
They're trying. That's what they're doing now. You better believe it. Mm-hmm. That's high class living over there now, but before it was a ghetto.
Now tell us. Yeah, right. Tell us what New York was like in those days as a young guy, you know, growing up. Give us, you know, take us to your vision.
Well, you know, when I lived in the projects, right, it was pretty much the projects was all black. You know, and during that era, right, you know, if you were white and you came to the projects, you can get your butt kicked. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. You know, if I went to like Bensonhurst or something like that, you know, like all white neighborhood, you know, I could be run out, you know, right. Chased down, beat down. You know?
So truth to be said, it was a segregated neighborhoods. They were in those days. Yeah.
Well, to me, it still is in many ways. When you look at New York, New York is still segregated in many ways, in my opinion.
Yep.
You got the rich area and you got the poor area. But now you got less of the poor area because the poor areas are becoming all rich areas. Everybody that couldn't afford to live in Manhattan, they're all moving to Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx even, you know?
Yeah, we would think that in those days, like we used to drive, remember going through Bushwick, how bad it was. Now you're talking about, you live where? Bushwick. Even for a black man, Bushwick was a difficult neighborhood to walk through because you never know, you get sticked up, robbed, knifed, because the drugs were bad.
Bed-Stuy and all that there. Bed-Stuy used to be a rough neighborhood, but now, you know.
Crown Heights?
Yeah, now I hear it's like $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment.
I know. So, this is all pre-disco. We're talking now mid-60s.
Yes.
Things are going,
before the disco era.
You're in school, and you're doing your thing. You're finishing up.
Brother.
You're in high school. Take us right through high school, 17, 18, when things start to really start cooking. Where are you?
Well, I'm going to tell you, right? You know, when I was about, let's see, when I started to work at the Galaxy 21, right?
Ooh.
Well, let's start out this way. The first time I went to a club in Manhattan, I had a bunch of girls with me. I had like 10 girls. And it was just me. I was the only guy. And they were like, come on, let's all go out. We're going to go out, right? So we went to this club. It was in 1975. And we went to this club called the Hollywood, where Richie Kazar was playing, you know? And after that club, right? This is the first time that I'm going out of Manhattan, right? After that club, the club closed like 4 o'clock in the morning, and someone said, "Oh my God, there's an after hours club. You want to go to another club? We know an after hours club called the Galaxy 21." Right? So we went to that club. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and the DJ Walter Gibbons was playing. I had never heard of him, but the club was amazing. It had like 4 floors. It was just an amazing venue. And when I saw that console, and I saw Walter Gibbons playing, and I heard that music he was playing, all I could think of is I got to find a way to get into that room. I got to find a way to get into that DJ booth. So, I think that Walter kind of took a liking to me. You know what I'm saying? And he was giving me like the eyes from the DJ booth and all that there, right? So he looked at me and he kind of like waved his finger. He said, "Come inside." Right?
Oh, he invited you the first night you were there?
The first time, right. The first time I went to the club.
How's that possible that you walk in the club first night and you're in the booth?
First night, right.
In a club, and first night, no less.
Right, yeah. So I get inside the console. Well, they call it the DJ booth at that time. Now it's the console. And I look around and I see all of the equipment and the way he had the turntable suspended and all of this. I was amazed by it, right? And I see the lighting console over there, but nobody's working the lights. There's a console for the lights, but nobody's working it. So I go over there flicking switches. What's this? What's this switch for? I start turning switches, right? And I just kind of started playing the lights. I never did lights before, but I just started working with the lights. And Walter says, I like the way you're doing those lights. How would you like the job as the light man? Wow. So I said, sure, So the next week, I had the job working the lights at the Galaxy 21. Now, I'm going to tell you, right? When I worked the lights, right, people, when you see lights in clubs now, they just pretty much run on a computer. The guy turns the computer on and then he goes down.
That's true, but unless Ariel's working them, and he's fierce.
Right. Right. Well, Ariel was inspired by me in many ways. He has said this many times. Right. But anyway, I got fired from the Galaxy 21. Long story short, I worked there for a year, right? And the reason that I got fired is because they had a white light, right? Whenever the break would come, when the big breakdown would come or whatever, I would flash the house lights and then I would throw the whole room into darkness, right? And so anyway, the owner, he didn't like that, right?
Why?
The owner, he told me, I don't like you using that house light. Don't put those white lights like that. You know what I'm saying? So he had warned me a couple of times, right? And then one day he came and he was very angry.
Hang on, can we play a song that would recognize Walter Gibbons and Galaxy 21?
Yes, please.
Would you like to hear, would I say Hit and Run by Lillian Holloway?
That's the one. That's the one that Walter produced. And
how big is the dance floor at Galaxy? You got to give people an idea. Like, what's
the dance floor in Galaxy 21 would have held about 600 people.
Okay, so it was more intimate than...
It was more intimate, but they had 4 floors. But they didn't have another floor of music. The other floors were right? So it was only one, at that time, in the 70s, they never had 2 rooms of music. There was always, even the studio, there was never like a privé with another DJ or whatever. It was one DJ. Right. But sometimes they would pump the music upstairs too. They had a connection where you could hear what's being played upstairs as well.
Wow. Okay, so now we're back to you working the lights, and the owner is not happy with your services. Wow. Right.
So he tells me, right, he had warned me about the white light a couple of times, right? So one night he came and he was pissed, right? And he said, because I had flashed the white light or whatever, and he came, he said, I told you, you don't work that white light again. He said, if you flash that white light again, you're fired. You understand?
And that's all you need to tell Kenny Carpenter. Go ahead. Right. I know Kenny Carpenter. Anybody knows Kenny Carpenter knows, don't tell him not to do it. Don't ever.
As he was leaving the booth, the big break in the record came, and I turned up all of the lights, you know what I'm saying? And then I flashed that white light and I threw the room into darkness, right? And after that, he came to the booth and he told me, you're fired. You understand? You're fired.
You understand? You understand me? Read my lips. You're out of here.
Right. But you know one thing, when one door closes, another one opens.
Well, that's
right?
the next. That was the question where was going to go. Okay, because
Right.
Richie was talking about that before as well. You know how he worked at Paul Anka's club in Vegas because that's how he went out there, and another door opened. So you tell us now your door that opened. What was that?
So there was that the club had two owners, right? And this guy named Angelo Clemente, right? He was one of the co-owners of the club, right? Absolutely, surprisingly, after he fired me, right? 3 weeks later, the club closed down. They went out of business.
That's because they had terrible lighting going on.
Yeah,
That's
Kenny,
why.
what happened? You took the lighting ideas with you? They couldn't
It
handle
was like,
it
where's
now?
the good lights? That's it. We're closing.
Lighting is dead. Lighting's done.
So the other owner, right? The other owner, he told me, listen, I'm opening up my own club on 19th Street between 5th and 6th Avenues, right? It's called the Inferno. How would you like to come and work the lights for me over there? That was in 1976 or 77, something like that. Right? So I said, sure, why not? So I left that Galaxy 21 and I started working the lights at the Inferno. The Inferno was a huge club, 2 floors, right? It had the dance floor held about 1,000 people, something like that, maybe about 1,200. Then they had a huge basement that was almost the size of the main floor, you know? And that was like lounge, coat room, everything. You know? So I worked at that club for 7 years doing lights. And every DJ that you could imagine, Walter Gibbons played there, Tony Smith, John Monaco. Remember John Monaco? He played there for a while. Renee Hewitt. You know? I saw DJs come and go, right?
Oh, I know you did.
Right, yeah. But at that time, during that time, from the time that I worked at the Galaxy 21, right, even before that, I had learned how to play music. Well, maybe I should start from here. Strafe, right?
Yes. Strafe. Who's Strafe first? So hang on. You got to tell us who Strafe is for those who don't know.
Strafe. Okay, Strafe. His real name is Stevie Standard, right? But Strafe was a DJ at that time, and later on, he made the song "Set It Off." He was an artist, Strafe, and he had a huge record called "Set It Off." Which was major in New York, as you know.
Walter Gibbons. And Walter
Gibbons did the remix, which Strafe hated. He hated the remix that he did, right? But it was still a major hit. And Strafe was responsible for me becoming a DJ, because in the mid '70s, right? Him and I became very good friends. He lived in the same building that I lived in, where I lived, and he asked me to go on the road with him. He said, I want you to do, you know, I went to his house and played around with some music that he had or whatever. And he said, I really like the way you DJ. Why don't you come on the road with me? I'm going to give you a nickname. I'm going to give you a DJ nickname. And your DJ nickname is called Moondust. That's what we're going to call you. So that was my first DJ named Moondust. And I did a lot of community parties, community events with him. And it was just great. Okay. So he was the one that's responsible.
Wonderful.
And now I forgot where I was going with that. But
that's where you started before the job came with, you know, Bonds and studio.
Oh, I know where I was going, right? So during the time that I was the light man, even at Galaxy 21, and when I was the light man at the Inferno, I knew how to play records.
Okay, can I interrupt you for a second? A lot of people never got to hear Walter Gibbons play, and you were blessed to be the light man there for a while. As a DJ, can you tell people what he was like? Because a lot of people say he was the first at this, the first at that.
I'll tell you one thing about Walter Gibbons, right? You see these guys that do these edits, these extended edits now, you know, and they use mostly a computer to do it, right?
Right.
Walter Gibbons used to do those edits live.
What?
He used to do like Happy Song. Remember Happy Song by Rare Earth? Right? Remember those congas in the beginning? That was only about a minute before the song started, right? Or maybe less. He used to loop that live. He would play. We have 2 copies of it, and he would just keep playing the beginning over and over and over again, and it was flawless. Walter Gibbons was one of the most talented DJs I ever heard in my life. And he really was a big inspiration for me, that guy.
Well, let me ask
And
you.
DJ, not DJ, but remixer, producer. He did it. He was the first one to do it that I knew. I didn't know anybody that did it at his level.
Where does Francois play in Galaxy 21 in that era?
Francois, when I met Francois shortly after I started working at the Galaxy 21, the lights. Now, I don't know. I don't know who brought him in, right? Whatever. But Francois was the drummer. Francois
was the drummer.
Yeah, and Francois used to play drums during the Walter Gibbons set. He'd be there with the drum set. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And I hated it. Oh my! I hated. You know, when I first met Francois didn't speak English. He did not speak English.
Well,
he would be there with the
French.
What language? I know. Tell the language that he spoke.
French.
Oh,
he spoke French.
Okay.
But he probably spoke other languages too, because Francois is multilingual. So.
Oh, he's very smart. Francois is brilliant. We know that. We all know
right.
that.
So he would go there. He'd be there with the drums, bam, 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 bam. You know. So I hated. Even now. I don't like musicians playing when I'm playing music to have musicians unless they working together with me and it's coordinated. So I would tell him, I would go downstairs to the floor and I'd tell him, stop. Right? Please stop. And because he didn't speak English, he didn't know what I was saying, or he didn't understand, or the music was too loud or whatever. He just paid me no mind.
He thought you kept saying, go.
French, what? So he just kept on playing, and I just would. Eventually, I went into the console. It was hopeless. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, back to the Inferno, right?
Wait a minute, Kenny. 1 second. Richie, you had drummers with you playing when you played?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Like Kenny, I didn't like it either.
Really?
Yeah. You know what it is, Kenny? Like you said, if you coordinated something ahead of time, otherwise they're just gonna play whatever patterns they think. And
because they're working for the owner. They're not working. They're playing for the owner.
Right.
They ain't playing for the DJ or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they may not even know what. They may have never heard the song you're playing before, so they're not going to know when the break's coming or when when.
Right.
So it's just a lot of times you see it now. It still goes on. It's sloppy. Most of the time anyway.
So you both of you would rather not have any drummers playing with you.
Yeah. It's
does that also include conga player?
Conga player, so I don't want unless they working with me. They standing by me, and I'm telling them when to play the congas and when not to. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I got to be in control of that.
Okay, so now we're moving forward. Francois, you meet Francois, and everything's going, and then we're in Infernos now. Right.
So now we're in Inferno 77, right? And I'm working lights there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And like I told you, I saw DJs come and go, and every time a DJ would get fired or he would quit or whatever or decide to leave, I would always tell the owner, Angelo, listen, why don't you let me take the decks? Let me take the decks, And he would say, no. He never gave me a chance to work, to play music at the club.
Wait. Say it once more. Wait. We lost you. Say it from no. He said no to you. Say it again because it was free.
Yeah. He said every time when I would, when another DJ would leave and I would say, why don't you let me take over the DJ spot? He would say, no, you stay with the lights. You're good at the lights, blah, blah, blah. He would never give me the opportunity to play music at the club.
What a mistake that is.
Yeah. So the last DJ that worked there, right, was Renee Hewitt. That's right, it was Renee.
Renee Hewitt.
I wasn't going to say his name. One thing, I wasn't going to say his name, but I'm going to have to say his name. You know what I'm saying? Because it was Renee. Renee worked there for 3 years.
He was a great DJ for his own right.
Renee was a good DJ, no doubt about it. Renee used to kill the place.
He'd do what he needed to do. He'd do what he needed to do.
Yeah, that's right. Renee was a great DJ. But as you know, those sets were some long sets. The set was from 11 p.m. until 9 a.m. So you had to be there. You had to bust out a 10-hour set with vinyl. You know what I'm saying? So
That's unheard
So-
of. Could you imagine that today? Telling
forget it.
somebody, you're gonna open up tonight at 11, and we're finishing at 9 a.m. Could you imagine telling these new guys that?
And with records, and here's the records. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know,
And make it work and turn
Right.
the place out.
that's right.
What
you know
was
what
the
I'm
one thing all DJs said? Don't go to the bathroom. You may not have your job.
That Frankie Knuckles famously said that. He said, "Don't go to the bathroom because when you come back, your job is going to be you're going to be fired, baby, and escorted out by security."
He was right. He was right.
That's right.
So now,
So-
go ahead.
So, you know, after working there for 7 years, right, Renee was the only one that would give me a break, right? Renee, after about, at like 8 o'clock or whatever, you know, Renee would get tired, you know, he'd be either tired or whatever, or, you know, and he'd tell me, Kenny, you know, you want to play for a little while? I'm going to take a break, you know? So I said, fine, you know? So this went on for about a year, really, you know what I'm saying? On Saturday, you know, he would, at about 8 o'clock, he'd be, I want to take a break. I want to take a break. So I said, oh, go ahead. I'm going to play. Don't worry. You know what I'm saying? So one night, this is 1980, right?
1980.
Renee tells me, I'm going to go and take my break. I said, go ahead. You want to play? Go ahead. Right? So as soon as he went downstairs to the lounge, the doors opened up. The front door, and in walks Mike Stone with Entourage. Mike Stone was the main promoter at Studio 54, right? And I knew him because I knew him already because I used to go to many of his parties before I started working for him. You know? So Mike walks in and he says, "Where's Renee?" You know what I'm saying? And I said, "Renee's going off for his break." You know? So, you know, I had an idea that I was being auditioned. I didn't know for sure, you know, but I said,
your gut intuition.
Right. So I said, you know one thing, if you never played good in your life, you better play good right now. You know what I'm saying? If you never turned it out before, you better turn it right now, girl. You know what I'm saying? So I played my heart out, right? Ripped the place, you know? So they stayed for about 40 minutes or so, you know, and when they left, Mike Stone told me, listen, I like your music. How would you like to play at Studio 54? So I said, let me think about it for a minute. Okay. So he told me, you got the job. You start next Saturday. So, you know, John Hernandez was with me because John Hernandez used to hang out with me a lot. And we were all thrilled, excited. Oh, my God, this was like a miracle. You know what I'm saying? It was like a gift from God. What, me at Studio 54? What? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was unbelievable. So the first night I worked at Studio 54, right?
First night.
But let me say this first. You know, Renee wasn't happy. And he still ain't happy with me. I know that, but he doesn't know how much I love him. You know what I'm saying?
That's a hard thing for anyone to accept because I bet he wanted that job. I would have tried too. I would want that job.
He told me, right? He said, you will go and you will call those people and you will tell them that job was meant for me. What? You understand me?
He said it to you?
That's what Renee said. That's what Renee said. And I said, you know, no, bro, I can't do that, Renee. I'm sorry. So anyway, after I left the Inferno, right, and I started working at Studio, 3 weeks later, the Inferno closed.
It's funny how you do what are you, the bearer?
He's the 3-week guy.
Yeah, you're the 3-week guy. You come out, you leave, and the place closes.
No more white light, 3 weeks later, gone.
So wait, you gave up, you hung your hat with the lights at Inferno, and who took your job? John?
John, right? I got John the job working the lights, right, at Inferno, and I started to play at Studio. Now, Studio was an all-black crowd, mostly gay. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the following that Mike Stone had.
Well, let's clarify that. So, the 70s movies that everybody sees, the Saturday Night Fever thing, is that white, mixed gay crowd with the Broadway people like Bette Midler. All those people were hanging out. Club closes, those guys go to jail. Schrager and Rubel.
Mm-hmm.
Club reopens, they bring Mike Stone in? Is that how that
No, that's not how it went.
So to break it down.
Studio 54, when Schrager when Schrager and Steve Rubel, when they went to jail, they lost the liquor license of the club.
Okay.
The authorities, they took the liquor license away. And I'm telling you right now, if you got a party in New York and there's white people dancing and you ain't got no liquor, they not coming.
It's true. You're right.
Just that simple. You know what I'm saying?
Just that simple.
So what other choices they have? Bringing the black promoter and bringing the black crowd, because we don't need alcohol, as you know. We still don't need alcohol. We feel that alcohol is something that's forced upon us in clubs.
Okay.
We really don't want to drink, right? But we feel that that's forced on us.
Okay.
Even now. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so Mike Stone was running the club. You know what I'm saying? Now, after the Inferno closed, right? Inferno was a Puerto Rican crowd.
Right.
Inferno was all Puerto Ricans, mostly Puerto Ricans, right? But they all knew me. They all knew me there. I was a popular light man. You understand? And they all knew that I started working at Studio 54. And when the Inferno closed, all of those people started to come to visit me at Studio 54.
How funny.
So Studio 54 became mixed. It wasn't black gay anymore. It was black Spanish mixed. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's pretty much, and that's the way it stayed for many years after that. And even the garage was like that. It wasn't totally black. It was Spanish mixed too, and some white. Mm-hmm. So what am I going to tell you about Studio 54 now?
So wait, I want to know. Mike Stone tells you start next Saturday.
Right.
Let me
finish.
What do you do to get this gig together? What did you go and do?
Right. Now I'm gonna tell you. Right. Now Nicky Siano was the DJ before me at Studio 54. Nicky Siano. You know what I'm saying? And
the gallery resident.
Right.
Nicky,
you know what I'm saying? And they got rid of him to hire me.
Really?
That's right. Studio 54. They fired him for some reason. I don't know what he did over there, but they wanted him out. You know what I'm saying? Wow. And that's why I started to work at Studio 54. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so the first night that I played at Studio 54, wait, let me say this before I say this, right? When they offered me the job, I didn't have no records to play for no 10 hours. How am I play for 10 hours? We're not get, you know what I'm saying? So I borrowed, begged, and stole. I went to my mother's house and I took all of her record collection. I said, Mommy, you don't need, give me these songs. I'll give them back to you. I went to my brother's house. Give me all your albums. Then I didn't have much money. You know what I'm saying? But the money I had, I went and I brought every record that I could. And some of the records I brought on 45s, I would bring 2 copies so I could extend it. You know what I'm saying? And play the instrumental from the other side too if I had to. You know? So I arrived the first night. I'm like, oh my God, I got to bust out a 10-hour set. How I'm gonna do it? You know what I'm saying? And Mike Stone, I didn't really think that he would believe that I was going to be able to handle a 10-hour set. So he had other DJs waiting. Right? It was like 3 other DJs waiting, and they had their milk crates with. They were waiting by the staircase. I could see them from the console. You know what I'm saying? They were waiting. They said, he's going to drop any second. I could feel it. You know what I'm saying? And, anyway, long story short, I was able to bust out those 10 hours. And I looked at those DJs. You boys might as well just go on home, baby, because I am not getting up off these decks no time soon. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, the first night that I played there, Nicky was there because it was my birthday. It was my birthday night.
The first night you played?
The first night I played at Studio 54 was my birthday. It was October. It was October the 7th. And I don't know whether that was the exact day, but it was the October 1980. And so they had a birthday cake for me and everything in the console.
Okay, so now here we go.
And Nicky was helping cut the cake and all that. He was very gracious.
And you would have been playing something like this, I'm going to presume. One of the records. Is it playing? Hang on. Sometimes you hum so much louder than the record, I'm like, damn, I hear him humming. And then your snaps.
Finger snaps.
Her across. Yeah! Okay. So our segment, Sing with Lenny. Okay, so we're now.
You know that Frankie Knuckles and David Morales recorded that, and Satoshi, they recorded that finger snap in the studio.
No, I do know that. You know how I know that? Do you know? I don't know if you remember how I know that. I know that because the phone call came from the studio to my studio, and you said, "Yo, you know where I'm at right now?" I'm like, "Where?" "They're recording my snaps." I'm like, "What snaps?" He said, "Bitch, my finger snap. You know my finger snap?" I said, "Frankie wanted it on a record." I'm like, I think it was that salsa thing they were doing, right?
I think Frankie used it. I'm not sure, but when I listened to his remix of "Unbreak My Heart," right,
Tony Brax, yeah, and you hear it in the beginning.
Yeah, that sounded like my finger snap in there. Now, I wasn't sure. I never really got a chance to.
All right, so now let's get back to the cake. So Nikki's got you. It's your birthday, your first night. What a birthday present! Mike Stone sets up you to play as his new DJ, and just so happens to be around your birthday. Could be a couple days before or after. The cake is being sliced. Talk about that. Bring us there.
So Nikki is there, and Nikki was very gracious. You know what I'm saying? You know, I knew Nikki before that too, but Nikki, you know, we weren't like friends or anything, but I knew him. You know what I'm saying? So he, he was helping cut the cake, and he was very gracious about the whole thing. You know? Anyway, it was difficult to get through that night, right? And we all made it. Everybody made it, and you know, my employment was for a year at Studio 54, every Saturday night. And we had some of the best performances. I mean, we had artists come through there, Grace Jones, Evelyn Champagne King, Chaka Khan, Lolita Holloway, Carl Carlton, what was her name? Tana Gardner. That was the biggest night that we had, because that Tana Gardner Heartbeat was the biggest record.
Boom,
one of the biggest records.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Boom, boom,
yeah. That was one of the biggest records that Larry Levan ever remixed. And when we had the show there, right, they brought out a special curtain with a heart, right? It was a pendulum. It was a pendulum that they brought down, and it was a heart with all red strobes on it. And when they started the song, they started swinging this pendulum. Heartbeat. It made me feel so weak. And the pendulum is swinging. And when she came and busted out on the stage, I'm telling you, that everybody just lost it, right? Studio 54 would hold like 2,500 people. Is the capacity of that club. We had 4,000 that night. We had 4,000 people for Tana Gardner. They were hanging off the balconies and everything. It was incredible. So I could tell you some more Studio 50. This is what I'm going to tell you my most famous Studio 54 story, right?
Tell us.
This is after Steve Rebel and Ian Strager came out of prison, right? Steve came to the club. I didn't know him. I knew of his, I didn't know him personally because, I never worked there when he was running the place. You know what I'm saying? So he arrives in the console, in the DJ booth, and he's got Calvin Klein, Bianca Jagger, and Andy Warhol with him. So Steve tells me, I want to hear Your Love by Lime. Right?
Your Love by Lime.
By Lime. You remember that dreadful song?
I know the record.
Right. When I got that record from the record pool, I opened up my window and flung it out the window. That's how much I like that song. You know what I'm saying? So I said, Steve, I'm sorry, but I don't have that song. Very nicely, I said it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, Steve. I don't have that song. Then he tells me, listen, I got Calvin and Bianca, and they're with me, and they want to hear that song. So play Your Love by Lime. So once again, very nicely, I said, Steve, I'm sorry, but I don't have that song.
Yeah, you're answering him the same way he's talking to you. Just like he would tell.
Then he told me, right? He said, you look at here. I'm Steve Rebel and I own this place. And I want to hear Your Love by Lime right now. So play Your Love by Lime, right? Now, Lenny, I'm telling you, I'm not allowing nobody to talk to me that way. I was getting ready to say something. I don't care who you are.
You can speak. We're on cable TV.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't give a shit who you are. I'm not having nobody speaking to me in that type of tone. You know what I'm saying? So when he said that, right, and his attitude, the way he said it, right, I said, Steve, I know that you own this place, but guess what? I don't work for you. I said, and I'm going to tell you another thing. If I had that song, I would never play that song. You know why? Because I hate that damn record. Like that. So when I said that, Calvin and all them, they all heard it. Calvin and Bianca and all them, right? They were like, right? Because, this is a big king, Steve Rebel. Nobody talks to him that way, right? So they all stormed out of the DJ booth, right? The following week, Steve Rebel hired the band, Lime, their Canadian brand, flew them in from Canada, right? And had them perform the song live on stage, Your Love, live, right? And he stood at the console like this, just looking at me. He didn't say a word. But what surprised me the most, right, is I never played that song. But when they performed it, the crowd loved it. And what a rough audience they were. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. New York, that's what you have to explain to everyone. The New York audience, about making it with the New York audience. How tough is that?
Listen, even if you had a big hit record and you were a well-known artist, those people in New York, they used to be very, very moody. You know what I'm saying? And if you sang something out of key, or if you jumped on that stage with attitude, right? If you gave them attitude or something like that, they would boo the hell out of you. Boo, 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 boo. You know what I'm saying? And it was relentless, I'm telling you.
Not like today, right? Not like today. Everybody's looking at their phones, writing all this crap, taking selfies. They were more concerned about what you were doing, right?
Listen, I saw Evelyn Champagne get booed at Studio 54.
What?
Right, and she got booed because when her first song was that song Music Box, which everybody hated.
Wait, what did you say, Richie?
Well, no, I was going to say, when in 1980, I brought her out to Paul Anka's club when I was working for Jubilation, and we flew her out there, Kenny, and she was so cool. We picked her up at the airport, and my friend Frankie had like an edit of her song. Like, I think I'm in Love was big at that time, and I don't know if it's right. It was like a couple of years before. But he had like a couple of edits done, and she gets in the car, he hits the release button, and she hears the edit. She's like, oh, how'd that? He goes, I don't know how that happened. We started laughing. But that was the first time we did a track act from New York in Vegas, in a club, in a place like that.
And mind you, in 1980, Vegas, Kenny, was like hay and a couple of things on the strip. It wasn't like today.
I would imagine. I've never been to Vegas.
And these two guys are New York DJs coming off the disco era. And bringing people out and stuff.
Yeah, they weren't into disco at that time.
Yeah,
I was playing imports like Harlow Takeoff and Hills of Kathmandu like late at night, and they were more into funk. And then we eventually got it so that we could play both. Like Al Hudson and Cutie Pie, all those kind of songs.
Right.
And then you work your way up in BPMs towards the end of the night. Then you'd be playing your imports and stuff. You could even get away with like Martin Circus and stuff like that, but we had to educate that crowd because there was not enough New Yorkers out there.
No, in those days especially.
Nope.
And even in Europe too, because Europe was not playing the same records we were playing here.
Right.
In fact, we broke more. In fact, Kenny and Larry probably broke more European records on their dance floors than actually Europe did.
Right.
Played a lot of them, especially in Bonds. A lot of Human League.
We're going to get to Bonds in a second.
All of that. We were playing all of it.
So I do remember you mentioning to me one story. We'll wrap the studio part up because Bonds is very important as well. About how the smell in the club was so bad.
In studio.
Yeah. Tell us why.
Right, but that wasn't when I worked there. That was a story that was told to me when I started working there, right? And they told me that people were always desperate to get in Studio 54. They would have paid anything. They would have done anything to get inside. They were just so desperate to get in that club. And one guy entered, this was before I started working there, he entered through an air conditioning vent on the roof. Somehow or another, he got on the roof and crawled into the air conditioning vent, and he got stuck and died there
What?
Wow.
Yes. So
the myth was real. That was a myth. They said that
was a real story. That was a real story. And they said for weeks and weeks they were smelling this horrible smell in the club. What is that smell? It smelled like a dead body or something.
And it was.
Because, whenever they would turn the air conditioning on,
it would stink.
And eventually they found out that the guy was up in there and that he had died.
Tell us what it was like, the ending for you at studio. I know even though a year is not that long, but in the DJ world, it is a pretty long time to have a residency of that level.
Well, you know what? One of the reasons that I left Studio 54, right, is because when Ian and Steve, when they got out of jail, they wanted their club back. They got their liquor license back, and they wanted their club back, and they wanted everybody out. Mike Stone and all that. They got rid of Mike Stone. They got rid of everybody.
Basically, what you're saying is they wanted the whole black crowd and Spanish crowd out.
They wanted the black crowd out, and they wanted their celebrity. They tried to rekindle that celebrity status that they had or whatever, but it never worked out because after they became convicted
felons,
they were the celebrities never really came back. And I heard a story too that they became kind of blacklisted because the president of France, right? The president of France was there with his wife during the time when Steve was running it, right?
Oh, really?
Some photographer, right? The president of France, his wife, had on no panties. She had on some dress and she didn't have no panties on, right? And somebody snapped a picture of her hairy pussy. You know what I'm saying?
It was all over the front pages of the French news. Il Bellet, French president. Hairy, scary. Hairy, scary.
Right, and so that's one of the reasons why they lost a lot after that. You know what I'm saying? They were.
All right, so Mike Stone and you, when do you find out it's over? Studio.
I found out really once Steve Rebel and Ian Schrager came out of jail, we knew that it was over after that. Because there was a rumor that they wanted to restart what they were doing before. And it was just a matter of time before Mike Stone was going to be out the door.
So here's what we want to do. We're going to say it's like going on to 1981, right? It's So we want to give that. I want to thank you for studio. So let's bring it up. Let's bring that. We want to. Let me tell you something, everybody. This man, legend beyond legend. I don't even know where to begin, but I will say this: he sent everybody in New York looking for this record. I want to thank you. Trust me. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, because MCA, I believe that Bobby Shore was working for MCA at the time, right?
Yep.
And he gave me the album, the LP, right? And when I heard that song, I was like, oh my God, this is it, And I played that at Studio 54. I played it. I'm sure I was the first one to have it, that album. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody had that album.
Bobby Shore's out there watching, Bobby, write in and let us verify that Bobby Shore.
And I played that song, and it became a big hit at Studio 54, and then it just went viral after that. That was a great song.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that, Kenny, because I always did say you were the one. I got to give you credit where credit's due. You broke that record in New York.
I broke that song.
Dwayne Holden even said that to me. He said, anybody I know played that record was Kenny Carpenter rocked that record.
Right. That's right.
Okay, so back to the glory of studio, and the whiteness is coming back over the darkness again.
Right. So when studio closed, when studio after Steve Rebel died, right? Because actually when they started their parties, it didn't go any more than about a year before Steve got sick, and they realized that they weren't going to be able to rekindle what they had before. So they started to rent the place out, and they started, actually, Vega played there. Larry Levan started doing some parties there during the week, And it was crazy because Larry, after I left studio.
Yeah, but that's later on. That's real later on.
Yeah, but they took the sound system out. Yeah, they got rid of the Richard Long sound system, and they got some crazy, with those white speakers. I don't know what kind of speakers those were that they had in there. But once they got rid of that Richard Long sound system, that was the end of the place. And Larry Levan started working there, right? And Larry had them cover the whole DJ booth, the top of the DJ booth with plexiglass. I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? But he had the cover, the whole booth. Hmm?
Well,
maybe he was afraid somebody was going to throw something at him or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He covered, you know?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that booth was all plexied.
Yeah, and Vega was doing some parties there too, I think, here and there.
Quite
a few people were working there.
I played for Bear Jones there, but I played on that horrible system. It was horrible.
Why did they take out a...
Yeah, the system that they had, that they put... I don't know why they got rid of
I don't want to talk about where the system went, but I did hear that it was taken out one night, overnight, stolen, the whole system.
That's why it was taken out, because what...
Oh, the Studio 54, the Richard Long system was stolen? Well, I don't know how they did that, because a lot of those speakers were up on the balcony.
They waited for everybody to go home, and then they had a whole crew of people, I heard.
Wow.
They cleaned out. They had an 18-wheeler truck outside, and they were out the door with it.
Oh, Lord.
I think it was the Duncan brothers that did the system after, something like that. Duncan, because they put that system... They put the system, the amp racks downstairs, under the booth, in glass. Everything was plexi. Oh, it was horrible. Yeah, so... Bonds International now. The next biggest dance floor in New York City.
So after studio, right, Mike Stone, calls me up and he's like, listen, I got another club. I want you to come to Manhattan now. I want you to see this club. So we go to Bonds. And when I arrived, when I saw the Bonds, I was like, oh my God, I never seen any place that big, and I never seen any dance floor that big in my life. I hadn't. Still to this day, to be honest with you, I've never seen a dance floor that big in a club. It was like a football field. And Mike Stone, when I saw the club, I loved the club, but I hated the acoustics were terrible. It had the worst acoustics that I ever heard in my life. And I felt like it was such a, after leaving Studio 54, I was like, oh my God, now I got to work in this dreadful place. You know what I'm saying? I just hated it in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? But
you made it work.
Everybody started coming. All of the people that were at Studio 54, they followed Mike Stone and they followed me into Bonds. You know what I'm saying? And Bonds, you needed 3,000 people just to have to make the place look full. If you had less than 3,000 people, it looked empty. And the place can hold like 5,000. So
it's the biggest dance floor in New York City. There was nothing bigger.
That's all, because I know
this is the biggest dance floor in New York.
Right. And they had a Richard Long sound system, but they didn't spend the money on the acoustics.
Right.
To do the room, and to treat the room the way Richard wanted to do it. They didn't come up with the funds, so he just left it the way it was.
So they had a disease called Funzolo, like in Italy. Funzolo.
The Farms turned out to be, I hated it in the beginning, but I learned to love it. And once you got those people in there, they had an acoustic problem. But what I learned is that once you have 3,000 people on the dance floor, they create acoustics. People create acoustics.
Yeah, they pick up. Yeah, they dry. It's like they absorb the sound.
Right. Yeah. So when we were packed all the time, we were packed. Every we would have at least 2,500 in the place, and that's what made Bonds fun. Is when you had all those people arrive.
Wow.
And Studio 54 and Bonds, those were two of the best experiences that I ever had working as a DJ.
Okay, so now let's take it in further now, and let's talk about some of the darker period of Kenny Carpenter. So, the music ends and life changes for you. It doesn't really end, but you take us on that trip.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, when I worked at Studio 54, right, I was a heavy coke user.
No, Coca-Cola? Is that how you did 10-hour sets, 11 hours with Coca-Cola all night?
I mean, when you worked at Studio 54, Coke was popular. I mean, they got the Coke spoon and the moon and everything. Of course, everybody wants to do a hit, So I'm telling you, I used to have drug dealers waiting online to give me cocaine. They would be cute, you know what I'm saying? And that drug addiction, you know, I became addicted to coke, and you know, and I carried that from Studio 54 to Bonds.
Kenny, something. You got a gig, Kenny? A gig just came in? Sam Pressman just asked, what was that club called? Bonds International Studio?
Bonds, we called it Bonds International Casino.
Right, okay.
Wasn't nothing casino about it, but that's
what's cool. Bic. So,
sure.
so you had the white powder everywhere around you. Free of charge, of course, because you are the party.
Right.
You are the party.
So, what happened, right, is I carried that cocaine right from Studio 54 into Bonds, you know? And it eventually it became a big problem for me, you know? Now, I'm going to tell you one thing that happened, right? You know, because I was, you know, I wasn't just on coke, you know, but any drug that somebody give me, I just take it. You know what I'm saying?
No, Kenny, you're a virgin. You don't know about no drugs.
I'm gonna tell you something that happened in Bonds, right? I was high on coke. So somebody asked me, do you want some heroin? I don't know who it was, right? So I said, sure, why not? You know what I'm saying? So I took this 2 and 2 of heroin. So right after I took the heroin, I felt the sweat rolling down from my face. You know what I'm saying? And my heartbeat was, you know. So Mike Stone runs in. Oh, wait, 1 second, please.
Yep.
I gotta come right back to you.
Come on, we're gonna go do a song. Since we gotta go to a commercial break.
Song.
Let's play Carl Bean. Let's bring that up. Make it nice and loud for everybody. Carl Bean.
Oh.
Definitely got to play some Kano and some Candidate for Love.
Isn't this story? Let me get in there. Let me break it down. Yo, isn't this story the shit or what? I say I don't even want to stop the camera. The more he talks, the more I'm like.
It's very interesting. Very interesting.
And it's real.
I like the dead guy on the chimney. I like that story.
The dead guy is awesome.
It smells in here.
Yeah, but it smells like
crap.
A dead body. Here we go. Kenny needs a commercial break, so we're going to Carl Bean. Thank you for tuning in to the Karmic Power wrap-up show with Richie Scotty's my guest and Kenny Carpenter, full Studio 54 DJ.
The bookend.
Nature's in the sky, yeah.
He's out Vegas now, right?
And me, and you inside, yeah. 'Cause I'm happy, carefree, and again. Ain't no false fact.
A lot of people tuning in.
I was born this way.
Yeah, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
This is your media.
Don't you catch me?
That's your
Here on the way. Nature meant to me. I'm happy.
Come on.
I'm carefree. And I'm gay. I was born this way. I'm happy. I'm carefree. And I'm gay.
What's up, Hector?
I'm happy. I'm carefree. And I'm gay.
Kenny.
I was born this way.
Kenny's in the street.
I'm happy. I'm carefree. And I'm gay. You call me strange 'cause you don't understand.
Love this wrap-up show.
No one. Cause you roll for me in life's overall plan. Yeah.
You know, on a side note, Kenny, I know I'm behind the screen. I know you can't see me because I'm talking to the people.
Oh, okay. But
When I
you
walked,
see,
Kenny's
check
back.
this out. I know you're back. I see Kenny's back. When I walked into Tom Moulton's house, okay, Tom Moulton mixed this record, and I saw the actual multi-track sitting by his bathroom. It said "Born This Way," Delegation, I think it was, the name of the group.
Mm-hmm.
He's had that multi-track for 45 years, right?
Wow.
He doesn't know that the record's renamed Carbine. I Was Born This Way. He knows it's Delegation.
Delegation.
That was whatever.
Like Heartache
I don't know if it's something like Delegation or Congregation or something like that. And this is the record. I always hear this record. I think of that multi-track. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this Born This Way.
He doesn't even realize it.
He didn't realize it was the same record.
Right.
Meanwhile, this record became huge in the club scene.
That bass line.
Oh, it's the shit.
That bass is crazy.
So Kenny, take us. Are you okay? Are we back from the commercial break? Because everybody's loving your story.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. So where were we? Bonds
We were on
International.
Bonds.
So heroin is now you're sweating.
Right. Okay. So I was telling that story, right? So I take this. I'm already high on coke, and I do this like 1 and 1 or 2 and 2 of heroin. So right after when I feel the sweat running down my face and my heartbeat is starting to increase, whatever, Mike Stone runs in. The show is getting ready to start. Chaka Khan, right? So I said, oh, right.
Which one? Which Chaka Khan song?
No, there's a show getting ready to start at Bond, and it's Chaka Khan.
You're like, Chaka Khan, what?
So he gives me the reel-to-reel tape with the music for Chaka. It was on the reel-to-reel. You know what I'm saying? Because, during those days, they didn't have a separate engineer that was doing the show when you were the DJ.
So you were the engineer as well?
When you were DJ, you got to be the one engineering the show as well. You know what I'm saying? That's the way it was. So when they gave me the tape, I put the tape, I had the Technics reel-to-reel, and I put the reel-to-reel on there, right? But I forgot to lock it down, the reel. You know what I'm saying? And when I went to go press rewind, the whole reel came off of the thing. Right?
So the tape spooled off onto the ground.
Right, and the tape was all over the DJ booth. All of the tape of Chaka Khan's music was everywhere. I mean, it was all on the cutting room floor there. And I looked, I was like, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? Now, I was in a panic after that. You know what I'm saying? Luckily, Chaka Khan is a smart girl, and she had a backup.
Ooh.
She had backup tape, right? It wasn't the only one she had. Luckily, because we weren't able to pull that tape back together after it was all over the floor like that.
It stood on the floor. Did Mike Stone freak out, or is he high as well at the same time?
Mike Stone just looked at me. Mike Stone never really freaked out. He wasn't the type of guy that freaked out. He was like, oh, well, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? What we going to do now? You know what I'm saying? So they pulled it together. They found another tape that she had, and they came in, and somebody else did it after that. I didn't do it. And I was like, you guys got to handle that. I can't handle it.
Right.
But those were the consequences of my drug use, And I could go on and on, but, I'll tell you, that was in the 80s, and my coke addiction ended in the 90s because I started to go to drug meetings, and I got counseling, and I got help.
Kenny! And we were all there with our pom-poms out. Remember, we were like, yes, Kenny!
Yes, but that was a rough run. I had like a 5-year run. That was a rough run for me, baby.
I remember.
And, I'll tell everybody now, just follow what Nancy Reagan said. Just say no. You know what I'm saying? Follow her motto.
But to how much of no? Which part of no? So let's go on now. So, you come back, you do BLS, 30 BLS in New York,
right.
You do the...
No, there's a lot of things that happen in between them.
Okay.
So I worked at Bonds for 2 years, right? Now, when Bonds closed, Bonds went out of business. In the same way all those other clubs are going out of business, Bonds went out of business, and I found myself outside looking in. You know what I'm saying? And it so happened that a month before Bonds closed, I met David Morales. Because Louis Sierra, remember Louis Sierra?
Of course,
God
may
bless
he
him.
rest in peace.
Right.
Yeah, our friend,
Right.
our good friend Louis.
Right. I was living out by Coney Island, right? And Louis Sierra lived out there. He told me, listen, I got somebody. I got this DJ. He does some club in Brooklyn, and he wants to meet you. Can I bring him by your house? So I said, sure. So he comes by with David Morales. And David Morales went with me to the closing party of Bonds. That's the first time I started hanging out with David, right? So after the club closed, David told me, listen, I got this little club in Brooklyn that I'm running. I'm running the place. It's called the Ozone Layer. How would you like to come and play with me out there and share a night with me? So I said, sure, because he had Friday nights and, like normal from 11 till 9, you know what I'm saying?
10-hour sets, 10, 11 hours, yep.
That was the standard at that time, you know what I'm saying? So I went and started working with David Morales at the Ozone Layer, right? And we would do alternating 2-hour sets, right? So say I would come in and play from 11. If I started at 11, I'm going to play till 2, right? So maybe I'll do 3 hours in the beginning. Between 11 and 12 is nobody there anyway. You know what I'm saying? So just, imagine the party starting at midnight.
Right.
So I play from 12 to 2. Morales played 2 to 4. And then I come back 4 to 6. And then Morales come back at 6 to 8, right? And we had so much fun. I had so much fun playing with David Morales. And we had this competition going on, right? We would, first of all, we would do the sound. We were in control of the sound. We used to bring additional speakers in and all that there, And I would tell David Morales, right? I would tell him, you think you're a good DJ, but tonight, I'm going to let your ass have it. So you better play good.
You better work hard. You better work hard.
Right. And then he told me, he would tell me, no, you're not all that. You think you're all that, but that's all in your mind. I'm going to serve you tonight, bitch. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way we're all night. You know what I'm saying? And the people loved it.
Like you're having personal war. Who could be better?
And and David, after I came on, after I busted the place, when he comes on, he got to play. You better play, baby, because I'm letting you have it. You know what I'm saying? And that made the party so amazing. So David was a big part of Morales, was a big part of my story, big part. And Ozone Layer, and it so happened that we had Carl Bean live at the Ozone Layer singing out "Born This Way." You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that was a great performance. Only 300 people. That place was a maximum 300 people. But we used to pack it every Friday night.
I bet. Easy for you to pack it too. In Brooklyn wasn't Brooklyn like it is today. That was a rough area where he had that Ozone Layer.
Flatbush Avenue.
Yeah, it was rough.
On that road. You know that, believe me.
Rough area in those days. We're talking a different. It's not the gentrified. We could walk around New York all night long.
No, it was very different. You could have your ass kicked on that road, believe me.
Yeah. And it happened. A lot of people
As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you a story about the Ozone Layer, right, that many people don't know, right? But before we started working there, right, they had a robbery at that place, right? A gunman walked in, right? Now imagine the capacity is 300, right? 2 gunmen or whatever walked in, and they told the DJ, turn down the music. This is a robbery, right? I want everybody right now to take off all of your clothes, right? Take off your clothes, right? Your watches and your jewelry. They had like 3, 4, or 5 big duffel bags. Your watches, your jewelry, your wallet, all goes into this duffel bag. Your clothes will go into this other bag here, right? And they left the place, right? And they took all of the bags with the clothes and robbed the people and took all of their jewelry and their money and everything and left them in their nude.
That's crazy.
How come I don't know about this story? This is a story you forgot to tell. This is a story you never told any of us. You were quiet.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Bonds was for about, I think I worked there 1.5 years, almost 2 years, And then when Bonds closed, that was really the beginning of the end for me in New York after Bonds. Because once you go in, you're in the biggest club in New York City.
It's hard to go down.
Right.
You
already hit the pin.
You can only go to something smaller. You're not getting nothing bigger, right? You know. And then I started doing some more parties with Mike Stone in the mid '80s. Morales did a few parties with him too, whatever. But Mike had a terrible drug issues, whatever, that he couldn't overcome. You know. And the parties started going on. Everything went down after that. You know, after Bonds. Bonds was the beginning of the end. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The end of an era, like they say. They tossed that phrase around so much, but that was truly the end of an era for me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it truly was. And you know what? Thankfully, it was an end of an era because you wouldn't be here today if you didn't stop.
Right.
I know you always told me that. You've always said that.
Right. So I'm going to tell you, right, I was still getting high. After Bonds closed, right, I was still getting high. But the drug dealers, they wasn't queuing up for me anymore. There wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't nobody giving me any pretty packages anymore. I had to go out there and get it myself, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I didn't realize this here until now, but not until 20 years after my recovery, right? But in 1985, my mother passed away. And when my mother passed away, I started smoking crack. And that crack addiction went on for 5 years, right? So I got clean in 1990. And a lot of stuff happened in between then, but I got clean in 1990, right? And after I got clean, everything came back to me. It was like a miracle. You know, I had to get a regular job. I got a phone call at my job, right? I was working for Lane Bryant, and I got this phone call. And they said somebody's on the phone for you, right? I get on the phone. It's John Robinson from WBLS.
May he rest in peace.
I get on the phone. Yes. And he said, is this Kenny Carpenter? He said, this is John Robinson from WBLS. I'm like, is this a joke? John who? You know what I'm saying? Is this some kind of joke or something? No, this is John Robinson, and I want you to do the Saturday night mix with me and the mix at 6 during the week. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, let me think about it for a minute. Okay.
Back to that again. Let me have a long think. Okay.
So I started to do after I recovered in 1990. I started to do WBLS, and I got some call. No, I got some call. I started to do some parties in New York too, some warehouse parties with Greg Day. Remember Greg Day? I started doing some events for him.
I worked for him as well. Wild Pitch.
And,
yep.
Wild Pitch parties. I did quite a few of them, right? And I was doing one of those Wild Pitch parties, and there were some people there from Japan at the party. And they came over to me, right, after the club closed. They said, are you Kenny Carpenter? And I said, yes. You know, they said, how would you like to come to Japan to play? You know? I said, sure, why not? You know what I'm saying? So the next thing I knew, I was in Japan, and I started traveling all over, everywhere. That after I got clean, the gates of heaven opened up for me once again. You know what I'm saying?
Luckily for you.
And I was able to reinvent myself some type of way. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. And the whole traveling thing began with the house music.
Yeah, it began. You know, I started traveling a lot. I started working in Japan, but working in London a lot too, because when the Ministry of Sound opened, the first American DJ they had was Larry Levan, and the second one they had was me.
Right, I remember.
Justin Berkman sent for me. Hmm?
Yep.
So that's the way it went, brother, for me.
Yeah, I remember spending a lot of time with you when you were doing those times, when you were doing the BLS master mixes and
right, yes,
all together.
And it was rough, you know, because now we got the internet. You know, I can make a CD at home, whatever, and then post it in 5 minutes. But during those times, all of the music that they played on BLS, it was only deliverable on reel to reel.
That's right.
So I had to make reel-to-reel tapes and deliver the show every week. Of course, I recycled those tapes. You know what I'm saying? Because reel-to-reels were expensive.
I remember.
Yeah, that was like, you had to get ready to kick out about $60 or $50, whatever, for a reel. You know, you're gonna get the good one. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they weren't paying me for that.
I remember we had that controversy letter. We talk about that.
Right, and that's how I fell out with BLS because I asked them. I told them, listen,
No,
I'm spending all this
on.
money.
Wait. Let me clarify. So you had a meeting with me, Lady Rock, and you read the letter to us. And what did we? And you read the letter that you wrote.
Right. And it didn't go over well.
And we all said to you, "Don't do it." And you said, "I need to be paid for my time."
Right.
And I said,
I'm buying reels, whatever. They wasn't giving me any money to buy all these reels, whatever. And then I got to make it from Brooklyn into Manhattan.
That's
you know
right.
What I'm saying?
I got to I remember you yelling at us.
You get over there. You know what I'm saying?
I got to hand deliver this thing. I got to make the reel. I said, Kenny.
Let me tell you something. When I gave them that letter, they were not feeling me at BLS, right? And they told me, right? They told me you should be lucky that you plan on BLS.
That's right.
Kenny who? You know what I'm saying? Right? They gave me that kind of attitude, and then after that I left. I quit.
But we warned you.
Mm-hmm.
We warned you that. We said, don't do it. Don't do
it. I thought that it was going to be a different outcome, but it wasn't.
I said to you, remember we had this conversation, Lady Rock, we were all together. We said, don't do it. You were like...
And I did it, and it was stupid to do it because it didn't go over well. Hmm?
Well, you know what? It's part of a learning process, too. You learned a lot from it.
That's right. Hmm? But I still, I had no regrets about that, though.
No, you shouldn't have any regrets.
Right. Because they still should be paying their DJs that they have over there, whatever. Even now. Even if you ain't, they should come up with some money. They're making money over there. Hmm?
I know. I agree. That's a whole other thing.
I should be happy that I'm on BLS, but they should be happy that they have me as well. You know what I'm saying?
So it goes both ways, right?
That's right. Hmm?
Tell us, Kenny, about... We know that part. We also know about the whole house music thing. But what happens now forward in your house career? You leave New York, you go to Rome, and everything else that happens.
I moved to Italy, you know what I'm saying? And one of the reasons that I left New York was because of George Bush. I didn't like George Bush. And I didn't like what happened on September the 11th. I wanted to be out of New York. And another thing is, as you know, Lenny, I don't like flying. And all of my work was in Europe.
Right.
And I got tired of all of that flying back and forth. I was getting ready to have a nervous breakdown.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, every time when I get on the plane, I think all I can think of is we're going to crash. You know what I'm saying? We're going down. You know what I'm saying? That's, And that started affecting my mental stability.
Yep.
And my work was in Europe. And my mother told me one time, wherever they're paying you, that's where you need to be.
And you ran.
And so I decided that it was time to leave. Because New York, after Bond's era and all of that, New York, after those big clubs closed, Paradise Garage and Bonds and all of that there, New York was pretty much finished after that.
Yeah, I know.
In my opinion. I mean, you had the Sound Factory bar that came. That was great. You know what I'm saying? And you had the Sound Factory and all that. Those were the last of those big club era and great days in New York for me.
Well, Kenny, we can go on and on, darling. And I love you. But we have to wrap up. And this was the most unplugged, incredible interview.
Well, let's do part 2 soon.
We're gonna have to do part 2. Did you like it? Because the people loved it. They were writing. They're writing to you.
Yeah, I loved it. But as you know, if I'm a great storyteller, whatever, and we could go on for hours and hours and hours. There's still so much left to tell. You know what I'm saying? But I'll save all that for the book.
Yeah, we'll do part 2. We will do part 2. And let everybody. I guess you know what they're gonna ask us to do part 2. But we gotta let you go because I know you're busy as well. It's 9 o'clock, coming on 9 o'clock in Rome, and I gotta wrap up here. And I want to thank everyone again from our studio in New York. A Ghetto MTV special, unplugged. The wrap-up show with Mr. Kenny Carpenter.
Kenny, pleasure to I want to meet you in person, so I'm gonna have to get over to Europe. But
same here, Richie. Same here, man. Get my contact information.
We will in a minute. We'll call you back.
And
Kenny,
great stories, man.
Is there anything last you want to say to everybody before I cut you off?
I want to thank all of the people that supported me during those times, and I want to thank the people that still support me today. You know what I'm saying? And you know one thing? The gift of music is something that we share that can never be taken away from us, and it will always be. You know?
That's right. That's right.
So, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everybody that supported me for so many years. Not just in America, but in Europe as well.
All over the world, everywhere. And like they say, Kenny-san, arigato, Kenny-san. Kenny-san, arigato.
And all over the world. You know what I'm saying? That's what we got to do. Keep spreading love, baby.
That's it, Kenny. Thank you, Kenny, so much. Have a great night.
Grazie
We love
mille, Lenny.
you. We love you, baby.
Ciao, Kenny.
Bacio.
Okay, let's wrap this up with Mr. Rich. Richie, tell us.
That was
Give
some
us-
interesting stuff.
Give us
gotta
your,
say. Well, I'd like to meet Kenny. I obviously knew his name through the years, but interesting story. Very interesting story. I'm glad he bounced back from the problems that he had.
The thing is that people don't understand how entailing the drug scene is to all this.
Well, back then, especially because when I came back from Vegas, I was working in Queens in first in Forest Hill Swim and Dance Club, but then I wound up in Pallets eventually, but and Veron and Camouflage. But by the time I got to Pallets, which was phase 2, before that it was Eclipse, and that's when drugs were like rampant.
That was like all that funhouse. I mean, the biggest drug in the funhouse, mescaline, poppers.
Yeah, the amyl nitrate
and angel dust.
Right, and it's funny.
Big time.
When he told the story about the reel to reel, I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but my light man. And you remember that booth in phase 2?
Yeah, the one with the swimming pool ladder.
Yeah, you had to go up and you get electrocuted if your feet were wet.
Yeah.
We had Sylvester there one night, and he was whacked out on. He was doing blow and amyl nitrate, and he loaded up the reel because, like he said, there's no engineer. Either the DJ or the light man was going to be the engineer, and spun out of control, ripped up the tape, and Sylvester was flipping out, screaming at everybody.
And
that's how.
And
thank God he had a metal cassette.
And he gets a metal cassette.
He saved it like
and
Chaka Khan had a backup reel.
sings. But this is the story and the tales of what nightclubbing was like. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. My co-conspirator, Richie Scott.
My man, Lenny Fontana.
And Kenny Carpenter. Incredible. I'm Lenny Fontana. We will see you next week. We'll make another announcement. We got another great artist coming through to come and hang out here at the studio in New York. Take care and have a great week.